Are you ready?
I think
Okay.
so. Oh my goodness. I lost my camera again. Sorry.
Well, that's all right. We can see your name.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. It's 6 o'clock and I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Lordsburg Municipal School Board special meeting of February 3rd. If I can get everyone to join me, we'll do the pledge at this time.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of
of the States
America
of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you want to start us on the New Mexico?
I salute the
Salute the
flag
flag of the state of New
State of New
Mexico.
Mexico.
This is a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Please note only the items on the agenda will be addressed this evening. And may I get a motion to approve the agenda as written?
This is Morelos. I make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Morelos. May I get a second?
I'll second that motion, Susie.
Thank you, Alyssa. Next item on the agenda is the public forum. Mr. Cheney, do we have any comments in the chat box?
Ms. Cole,
We
would
need-
you please hold the board for the
Yeah,
record?
we got to do a vote. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Morelos,
Aye.
Ms. Esquivel,
Aye.
Mr. Barrera?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
And myself, aye. The next item on the agenda is public forum. Mr. Cheney, do we have any comments in the chat box?
We currently do not have any comments in the chat box referring to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is discussion items, which we don't have right now. So we'll go on to item 5, action items. Dr. Lucas?
Yes, we'll start. It's a discussion and possible action on the new state guidelines for the opening of schools. And we'll get started. We'll do a round robin. And Ryan, if you could send Adam a link again, he just texted me. Can you send Dr. Amador a link?
I'm in now, Dr. Lucas.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So, as you know, the governor came out with an announcement that said we could start schools on February 8th. And then that was it. That was a drop. There wasn't any notification, there was nothing provided with it. And then PED came out and gave more guidelines and said, it's local control. We have the choice of going, remote with small group, or hybrid. He says it's entirely local choice. Then he said, but if you want to do athletics, it has to be hybrid. So that threw a kink, and that has caused a big rift in the community. Anybody out there, I would suggest writing the governor, and I would suggest writing Secretary Stewart as well, just to let them know or voice your opinion, because I don't think that was a fair thing to do to us as a community. It's, no matter what we do in this, it's going to be a difficult decision, and it's not going to please. One side or the other is going to be very upset. So they shouldn't have put it. In my mind, we should be able to choose how we're going to do school and how we're going to do athletics. That's my mind, and we're still hopeful for that, but we don't know. But at this time, and personally, we did a poll. Well, I'll go in the polls later. I'll let the principals go around. We'll start with Adam, and just he can give you a little bit of his perspective.
Okay, Dr. Lucas, President Cole, members of the board, if it would please the board. We want to be back in school, and that's the key. But I want you to consider, several things. We have a lot of students, and the preparation, we just went to a half schedule. I think that the teachers have done an excellent job, and the families, the communities have done an excellent job in responding to the COVID crisis with their students and their kids. I had COVID in December. My kids were asymptomatic. And so we have to look at everything from kids to teachers to health to our ability to respond to those things. And so I know that we're set up good right now as it stands. What time frame do we have for preparation if we do go hybrid? What does hybrid look like? And you guys have seen my reentry plans. I just don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball to say this is the best way to go. But I do know that my teachers are still concerned about preparation. I'm concerned about that. And we want to make sure that whatever direction we go, we want to make sure that everybody's safe and taken care of. And I don't, think about the community, the multi-generational families, grandparents taking care of the kids, how this affects the whole community, not just RVT. And so those are my thoughts. I know in December, the last meeting I kind of was able to speak at, I shared that experience with you guys. So just take into consideration that, I take into consideration safety and security first, health and well-being of not only the students, but the faculty and staff as well. Those are things as a building principal I have to take into consideration every day. And so that's where my opinion or beliefs rest. And just at the basic form, is the facility able to handle the restrictions and guidelines from the CDC and the Department of Health? Those are things that need to be considered in the decision moving forward, right? How does it look having 8 kids? How does it look going 50-50? What does lunch look like? Is it in the rooms? Can the kids play on the playground? And from what I'm getting I watched 9 board meetings in the last couple of days. Kids can't play on the playground. So they're going to go to school, and then what are they going to do to let that stuff out, right? If we're going to keep them safe and secure. So all these things have to be taken into consideration moving forward. And the fact of the matter is I have 200 kids on my campus, near 200 kids. And so that's almost double the size of the middle school and the high school. And how are we going to respond to that? What does busing look like? What do the teacher schedules look like? All these things and again, teachers coming back who have not yet gotten the vaccine or do not want to get the vaccine, what risks do those pose to all of us? Okay, so and if it's your right, if you don't want to take the vaccine, that's fine. But what risk does it pose to these teachers coming back to work? What risk does it pose to the students and the rest of the staff? So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't really, have much on the topic. I know, like I said, and Dr. Lucas said right now, this has been politicized. It's a highly volatile topic. There is a no-win situation right now, and with how we've been presented this. If you go back to March, we're a red county, we should be closed, blah, 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 blah. And then we have an about face February 8th. And the governor put us in a crazy position. Now I don't have athletics at my school. I don't have all the extracurricular activities that the other schools do. So my choice, is to remain on something consistent for the families, for the students, for the grandparents, for the teachers, and something that's gonna get us through the end of the year and give us time to retool for next year. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
No, sir, you did a very great job stating your reasons, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ralph?
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Lucas. Thanks for the opportunity. I think it comes down to a couple of things. I was quite perplexed when the governor did an about face and said we will come back on the 8th. That was a big surprise. I'm sure many of you were also surprised, but that's what it is. That's what we have to work with. And, you know, I think Dr. Lucas makes a good point, right to Secretary of Ed Stewart, right to the governor. But right now, the guidelines that were given to us, that's what we have to work with. And so it would be nice to go ahead and write to them, but I'm worried about the timeline. We're, in February, I do know, and we can talk about this, but the schools have to pass an inspection just to open up the school. So how long is that going to take, and who's going to do that? So we have to prepare for that. And something that the board has to consider, and Dr. Lucas has to consider, is, we have TAL, that is our agreement with our teachers. And so there's some negotiation that has to go on there as well. And so, we're fighting against time, and that's something that you have to consider. Unfortunately, our district has been hit hard by the pandemic, not only the kids and families within the community of Lordsburg, but our staff, and I worry about staff. I've had 2 incidents in my school, and both of them, I can't afford to lose either one. They're good people, they work hard, and so I'm worried about what I'm going to do if, let's say, I lose, any one of my teachers, any of my staff. Everyone's important. How do I replace them? Unfortunately, we don't have people waiting in line to come and sub, and qualified people are at a minimum. That's just the way it is in a small town, in a small area. You don't live in Las Cruces or Albuquerque where people line up just to get into the school district. And that's something we have to consider. So, I put a lot of thought into this. I've worked hard, and in listening to Dr. Amador, there's a lot that's you have to put into just to get the school ready. It doesn't just happen. And so, you have to consider everything that he went over. You have to go into the classrooms and measure them, and how many kids can you get in there? What are the size of your classes, and how are we going to make this work? We also have to consider busing, the transportation. And so we have families that have kids at all 3 schools. So how do you make that work and still be in compliance as to how many kids you can bring into the school in one day? A lot to think about. PPE, all of that comes into play. And so we've been hustling, we've been trying to do the best we can, but if we were to come back on the 8th, that would be impossible at my school. It just wouldn't happen. We're not ready. I'm not saying that we can't get the school ready. We're working on it, but there's a lot of factors that have to come into play before we can even consider coming back. So I kind of worry about the athletics piece too. I'm worried those seniors especially that may not get to enjoy their senior year like the others. But think about last year too. Our seniors, they didn't get to finish spring sports. So it's just not a win-win situation for us, but it's a hard choice that we have to make. At this point, the safety of the students, our faculty, our staff, everyone that's involved with the schools, that's what I'm worried about. And that's what we get paid to worry about as administrators. We have to look at the big picture, and not only do I look at it in regards to the high school and the elementary school and how we interact, but I look at the whole district as well. And how are we going to do transportation? How are we going to do food services? What are we going to do when someone gets sick and we can't replace? How's that going to work? It's just something you have to consider. I would love to be able to go to the high school and watch a basketball game or a volleyball game, but right now it's not safe. It's not safe for our kids. It's not safe for staff. Last time I checked, Hidalgo County is at 17.6% infection rate, which is one of the highest in the state. And it's not getting bigger or better. and for a district, a county this small, to have 323 infections, that's a big percentage of it. And you got to think about that. And that affects everybody, abuelita and kids and aunts, and every one of us has been affected by this. And so you have to consider that, and not trying to be negative, just trying to be realistic and trying to add some guidance to you. As board members, you know how I feel about this, and I'll be the first one to say I love athletics. I love kids to be involved in extracurricular activities. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to do that. In larger districts, if we stacked the athletics up and did football and then basketball in a time, the larger districts can do it, but it's going to be hard for Lordsburg because our kids play every sport. So you might have a child playing football and then they're practicing for basketball, and then baseball comes in. And how are they going to do that and keep the academics up? I do have a concern, and this is, I can't speak for the high school, but I have kids right now at the middle school that aren't performing and they're not academically eligible. And so two of the best players I have on my boys basketball team aren't eligible. So how do we make that work? Okay. So that is a concern as well. And I know it's a concern for Mr. Roberson and for Coach Hooper as well. I know it's a concern because, it just is, you have to consider that. So that being said, at this point, it's not entirely safe, but I will say this, whatever you decide as a board, we'll make it work. We will do what we have to do to make it work. So you need to understand that your staff, and Dr. Lucas knows this well, we have an amazing staff at every school. And whatever you decide, we'll make it work. And so you need to understand that you're not in it alone. So I'm going to just open the floor for any questions or comments at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Almanzar.
Yes, ma'am.
Want me to start, Dr. Lucas? All right. Hey, I echo Dr. Amador's and Mr. Almanzar's concerns, and understand that it's really going to be difficult. And I respect both sides of this argument. I mean, there isn't a right. I can agree with the side that says they want to go hybrid, and I can agree with the side that says they want to stay remote. So I'm just gonna get personal and just talk how I really feel. So don't take anything personal. So right now, do I know what parents are going through? I don't. I can understand what they're going through because I'm communicating with them and communicating with students and communicating with parents, but I don't get it. I mean, I'm not in your shoes. So, but just to kind of go back a little bit and just bear with me, is that, just to address sports first off, is that, I'm a sports guy, I love sports. I had 4 kids, a daughter that played one sport. I had 3 kids that played all 3 sports. So from the time they were, 6 years old, 5 years old, we were 3 sports a year from the time they graduated, so we put all that time and effort in. And so I try to put myself in your shoes, and I don't think I can because I'm not there, because I was lucky enough, my kids got to do everything. But, and again, don't take this personal, but I do believe that I would be a selfish dad. I would think that I would be saying, hey man, we need to play sports, because my kids have, worked their butt off, and we need to play because it's important to my kids. It's important to me. We put all that time in. But I think that's a selfish way. And not being selfish, about, not wanting the students to come back to sports, or continuing being selfish. So I want kids to be able to play sports right now. I want kids to be in school right now, but I'm being selfish. I'm thinking nothing about myself. I want to go to Friday night football games. I want to go to volleyball games. I want to go to every sporting event I can possibly go to. I want to be able to get on kids' butts when they're at school about telling them you're not doing your work, you're not paying attention in class, you're not living up to our standards, all of that. I want to tell them all that. And then, as they all know, when they walk away, I say, hey, but you know what? I still love you. Like I tear them apart, and then I let them know that I love them. But that's being selfish on my part, because I worked at RBT, I work at the high school, I know DTMS got great teachers, but I know RBTs. I know RBT's teachers. They're awesome. I know the teachers we got at the high school. They're awesome, and I care about them. I care about them a lot. I care about our teachers. I care about our students, and I care about our families. In the short time I've been here, I've got to know families. I've got to know the parents. I've got to know the grandparents they're raising their kids, and it's scary. It's scary for me to think that I'm gonna be selfish because this is what I want, but I have to think about others first. And I know how important some of these grandparents that are raising these kids, how important they are to these families, and they're in the high risk category. And I know how much our students need these grandparents who are raising them to be part of their lives, and that scares me, just like everyone said. And just to kind of address our teachers' concerns is that they want students in school. They want the school to be wide open. They're not all for this hybrid. It's either a lot of the majority of the students across the district want to remain where we're at, or maybe have small groups, and some of our teachers want to open up and do remote learning. And I respect each side's, opinions, and I understand where, everybody's come from right there, because our teachers are concerned right now. We know that remote learning isn't the best way to provide academics. We all understand that. Parents understand that. Kids don't understand that. But we still have students being successful. And we feel that, really coming back into the classroom, we're not really, of no fault of anybody, we don't have the technology, the capabilities to make sure that we're addressing the students remotely, that aren't in school. But definitely those kids that are right there face to face are going to be getting, great education. And our teachers are providing great education right now at this time. But we know there's limits. So, when they're in the class, those kids are going to be getting the great education, and we feel it's going to be more difficult to try to reach those kids, using the hybrid model, just simply because of technology, and just, not being able to meet their needs as well as we need to with those students that are face to face. And there's so much to it that, like Mr. Almanzar and Dr. Amador, expressed about all the other concerns. So my true feeling is that, like I say, do I want to go hybrid? I do, more than anything, but not at this time. I don't feel that it's the right time. I don't know when the right time is going to be, but I really believe that our community numbers need to go down. I believe that we need to make sure that everything's in place to be able to move forward safely for our students, for our teachers, and for our families, our students' families. And I believe it's important that who chooses to get vaccinated, that all teachers need to be vaccinated. And so that's where I stand. And And, excuse my French, it sucks. It sucks because I know how important everything is for all members of our community. How important it is for sports, how important it is for our kids to be in school and have the teachers learn. And, to get that education that we've all, come accustomed to. But I'm not comfortable. I'll put myself at risk. That's what I mean. I'll be selfish and put myself at risk, but I'm not going to put my teachers or our teachers across the district at risk. I'm not going to put our students' families who are high risk at risk. I don't feel comfortable with that at all. And so that's how I stand. And thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Roberson. Dr. Lucas, I think you're muted.
Just one quick thing. I want to let everybody know that we are seeing the comments. We can't respond on them, but as you're writing comments, we're able to read them and see them. So Coach Hooper, your thoughts?
Yes. First of all, school board, I don't envy your decisions that have to be made. And I know you guys are going to make the best decision in your heart and what you feel is the best for our town and for our school and for our students. And like I said, I wish I didn't have that. I'm glad I don't have that decision to make. But in my opinion, there's a lot of different ways we go about this. Okay, we do the hybrid, and we could do a hybrid where a kid chooses to come to school or they not choose to come to school. They can still do online. All right, and so then you could have just certain kids coming and others that feel that don't feel safe. They can still do online, and we'd still be able to play sports. And what our rules are for the sports, like a lot of schools, like I talked to all our district today, and most of our district schools are going to start the 22nd. I think a lot of schools in New Mexico are going to start the 22nd. And the reason why they're doing the 22nd is because the governor also, I'm sorry guys, my dog's in my way. The 22nd is you have 2 weeks before you're allowed to participate in any sporting events, 2 school weeks. And so that would be 2 weeks to our first sporting event. So if say we decide to go hybrid, or you guys vote to go hybrid, but we go hybrid in March, we would miss the first week of whatever sporting events and go on from there. But again, that's a decision on you guys. Do I think, I couldn't tell you right now that, and I couldn't sit here and say, yes, let's come back to school and yeah, no one's going to get COVID. It's crazy. We're going to get it whether we're in school, out of school. I don't know. It's going to happen, and I agree with what a lot of kids are saying, man, coach, they go to stores, they go everywhere. And it's the same kind of thing. The kids, I think, really want to be back in school. And I think Mr. A brought up a good point, and I want to go off of that, because when he brought up a point about some of his basketball players, that, yeah, their grades are terrible. And that's not the only ones. There's a lot of kids like that. And I think a lot of our kids have lost that motivation. And I'm sorry, but I think that's what it is. A lot of kids, they need that motivation of maybe participating in the sport to help them and to motivate them in school to do their work. And unfortunately, I wish that wasn't true. I do, but it is a fact. We can't lie about it. It's a fact. And grading period, we're gonna run grades, 6 weeks to see if kids got their grades up, if they're eligible or not, and then go with 9 weeks also. And we're gonna go with that for the grades. The hybrid situation, I was hoping that our governor was gonna allow, maybe we could just do it like a tutoring for our kids that are struggling. Maybe like a small group of 5 come in and we could do tutoring. And would that count as a hybrid, and we could still participate in our athletics? And they said, and that was a no. And so we got shot down on that. So I said, well, we have to have in-person teaching. And then I asked, and then another question was asked, well, does if you have a hybrid system classes, and what if a kid still chooses to just do online on that, and they're still good to go, as long as if they don't have to be in school? Does that make sense? As long as we're offering school for everyone to come to. and that was part of the situation. And I think it's pretty bad, in my opinion, and I'm sorry if I go out of bounds on our governor, but I'm really disappointed how she kind of threw that back on all our superintendents and all our school boards to make a decision. Well, if you want to play sports, you got to do it this way. And I wish that wasn't, I wish they would leave that decision up to our school districts, up to our school board and our superintendent, but that's not what we're dealt with. I did talk with the bosses, with Mr. Lucas, and I was thinking, well, if you guys decide to vote, say you guys vote, no, we're not gonna come back to school as of right now. And maybe look at it later or whatever, but right now, so we're no going sports. Maybe we could write a waiver and just see what happens. I don't know, see if we could make something change so we're allowed to do sports, or not. You guys can maybe vote on that we're just not gonna do sports too. And I'm sorry, guys. Yes, if you have any questions, because there's a lot, I have a lot. I know maybe you guys have any questions for me on what they're expecting of us, or you guys understand everything on what they're expecting of us?
Coach Hooper, I do have
Is
a
there
question.
no questions? Yes, go ahead.
Realistically, what is the probability that we could change the NMA's decision on allowing our kids to play if the district is not in a hybrid model? Do you think it's possible, if we encourage our parents and our students and just our community as a whole, realistically, that it could make a difference and that something could change?
Yeah. Yes, I think that's a great question, because I agree. Yes, I think we can. And it's really not the NMAA. The NMAA is stuck with what our governor and our PED passes down to them. Because I'm going to tell you guys, a lot of y'all don't know Sally Marcus. She's the head of NMAA. She's awesome. The good lady fights for us like crazy to have us be allowed to play sports. And but we may not be the only school fighting this situation today, because I know Mescalero's having this same debate, I think, today too. And there's a lot of schools, Hatch, a lot of them. You guys may not know that, but a lot of schools are having that debate today on what they're going to do. So this could come down to a lot of parents, a lot of communities talking and contacting our governor and the ed department over there about their decisions. And people, this is the next thing I've had this brought up to me too. Well, if you're gonna play sports, you have your kids in contact. Why not just go to school? But there is a difference there, obviously, because I would say I have 25 kids out for football. We're in a small group. We're confined. That's our 25 kids. We're going through our routine. We're doing the same testing. We're checking their temperature. We're doing everything safe. But that's it. They're not going amongst another 100 kids during that day, right? So there is a difference. 100% there's a difference. And the same thing with our volleyball. That's kind of why we keep everyone separated. That's why we keep everyone in the same pods. That way they follow the same pod from one sport to the next sport. We want to confine that, right? Now, if they were in classes, how are you going to do that? That would be a tough one, right? I don't think you could do that. Well, you have this pod, you couldn't. It wouldn't happen. And so, yeah, I pray that they allow us and give us the right thing. Let the school district decide what's best for our community. Because I promise you, the school board, our school board, and Mr. Lucas and our supervisors all understand what our town needs the most. And it's a sad thing that's taken out of our hands right now. So I'm sorry, I kind of got off on a rant there. I do think so. Yes, the bottom line. Any other questions, maybe?
Thank you.
I have one, Coach Hooper.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the 2-week kind of evaluation? I don't know, Dr. Lucas might know a little bit more about it, but I think they're going to kind of evaluate the sports to see if there's a spike or something like that. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. Okay, so what they're doing on a 2-week, and see, I was thinking on the 2-week thing, that kind of went back and forth for a while, and then we got actually why they're doing a 2-week. They're doing a 2-week to see if there's any spikes in COVID, and if we have say we all come back to school, we start practicing and everyone's gun ho, we're ready to just light up everything in volleyball and football, right? And then we have a spike in COVID, we're shut down anyway. We're not going to play any sports. It's done anyway, correct? And but if we come in and we do the 2-week period and we have no spikes, so that means kids and everyone in our community is doing the right thing, right? Protecting everyone to make sure we don't have no spikes, right? Then we're good to go. But if in 2 weeks, if the spikes go up on the COVID positive test in our community, then yeah, it's not going to matter anyway. We're going to be shut down, and we'll be shut down for another 2 weeks. And so then you add that 2 weeks, so we're out of those seasons already. And there is a lot of problems with it. That's a great question, though. Thank you. And did I explain that for you enough to everyone?
You did, yeah. I just want to, and that's supposed to start the 22nd, that evaluation process. Is that right?
No, it starts whenever day we start. So for instance, I've had people talk to me, they said, well, what if we're going to start school, like say March 1st, right? Because that's a doable day. I think any date's doable because that we have amazing staff. But say we start March 1st, we still have a 2-week time, but we can't play in any sporting events until we went through our 2-week, our 2 school week time. And that was a big dilemma too. Is it school weeks or is it actually calendar weeks? And they said, no, they're going to go by school weeks. So that's a Monday through Thursday for us, and so 2 school weeks.
Okay.
And so we'd be able to play on that second Friday.
All righty, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. I'm sure, and guys, and I'm sorry I haven't answered all. I mean, it's answered before you guys even had to ask. Any other questions? We've had a lot of meetings, to say the least, on this, and it's changed. We've had, in the last week, we've had 4 meetings as a state. So any other questions though?
No, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Hooper.
Guys, hey guys, thank you a bunch, and God bless all of you guys.
You too.
Okay, Raquel, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, can you tell us yours and your views?
Okay, so I am president of our local association, and it's the Teachers Association of Lordsburg in conjunction with the National Education Association. And it's our local union. So I went ahead and surveyed our membership, and they were open-ended questions to see what their feelings were. And I also spoke to some of our non-members just to get a feel of what they were thinking, because as the union, we represent both members and non-members. So while we should share the concerns of the general public about the social emotional learning of our students and their inability to socialize with peers right now, we share those concerns. We also know that in-person learning is best for our students. However, right now, our union and NEA support, well, our union supports the continuation of remote learning as it is, and does not support the reentry of the Lordsburg schools in a hybrid model. The concerns for this are, first and foremost, the health and safety of our staff, because the staff can be vaccinated, they can practice all the safety precautions that there are in the world, but if a student comes with COVID, there still is that chance that a teacher is going to get infected, even with the vaccine, because the vaccines don't prevent the infection, they minimize the symptoms. There's a chance that we could, if we are asymptomatic and we have that we could pass it on, which is why the masks are still required, why you're required to wear the mask. So we first and foremost, that is what is the most important for us, the health and safety of our staff, the students, the families, and the community. Right now, not all staff have received even the first vaccine dose, and I happen to be one of those. I just got a text yesterday that they don't know when I'm going to be able to get the vaccine, when it's going to come out, and there will be more made available. Many have not received the second dose. After the second dose, you have to wait a 2-week period before there's that full effect in there. And as I said before, even with the vaccine, a person can still contract the virus and may be able to pass it along to others. In the hybrid model, it will not necessarily increase learning. There will have to be a learning curve there of 2-3 weeks for both students and teachers to adjust to that. So in essence, we could even lose what learning is occurring right now within the model, within the remote learning model. And essentially, I know that parents are thinking, many parents may be thinking, or community members may be thinking that, oh, they need to get face-to-face because they're going to get the help that they need. We still have to practice social distancing. We still have to stay 6 feet apart from students. So we can't be there to write them like we would, to help them like we would normally. We're going to have to essentially be managing 2 separate classrooms. We're going to have to manage the students that are remote that day and the students in the classroom. So it's not going to be just a simple thing and, oh, we're going hybrid and our learning is going to improve. And our kids' learning is going to improve. It may be less effective. There's also the very real possibility that we would have to close schools again and adjust once more to the remote learning. There's too many logistics that we really have to sit down at each school and discuss and see what is going on. Right now, we feel that it is best to continue remote learning and use the months ahead to have a very detailed plan to get our buildings ready and whatever the inspections done, whatever needs to happen, so that we can go be prepared to enter school in August for the 2021-22 school year. And that is our stance on it. We need to be safe and protect our people in our community before going back into a face-to-face model. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try my best to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Manciel. I had a question. For some of the people that are online, Dr. Lucas, can you explain what the union does? How do they outfit in
Right. So if we do decide to go hybrid, we will have to renegotiate, or shouldn't renegotiate, it's in state law. And if their job description changes, which it will, because with hybrid, you have to do in-person and class, your hybrid or the remote. So that's a process. I mean, it takes time to renegotiate the contract. Otherwise, we're in violation of the state law. But our union, they every year we negotiate the employment contracts, the terms of the employment, work hours, number of classes they teach, everything like that. A person is not required to be in a union in our district, but we do have the union and they do negotiate the contracts for everyone.
So, and just to know, we have to open up the whole bargaining, and that bargaining, even if it's just like a simple where everybody is in agreement with everything and there's nothing, we're just looking at the calendar and possibly, just little things, it usually takes at the minimum for everything to go through at least 5 weeks. And we can't return until that has been negotiated. And like I say, that's something that's minimal. Any other questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. Montiel.
Okay, and then I wanted to go over the surveys we did. We put a survey up for parents and for teachers on Facebook, and teachers, we emailed us through Google. But for the parent responses or the community responses, we had 395 responses. 39.5% wanted to go hybrid. 53.9% wanted to stay remote. And then 14.4% wanted to stay remote plus small group. So we consider the remote plus small group and then stay remote, that's still remote. So that's a total of 68.3% for a remote type of instruction versus 39.5 of the respondents from this survey, for the public, wanted to stay hybrid. And then for staff, there are 101 responses. 16.8% wanted to go remote plus small group. 16.8% wanted to go hybrid, and then 66.3 wanted to go stay as is. So if you combine the two remotes, that's 83.1% of the staff feel like we should stay as is. And personally, I don't think we should consider remote or hybrid until all staff have had the opportunity to be vaccinated and those vaccines have had the opportunity to take effect. And then now, really, that's all we have to present, and it's up to y'all to discuss and decide. And if you have any questions, feel free.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas. Thank you, administrators, Mr. Hooper, Ms. Montiel. Thank you all for your input. It's greatly appreciated. And I'm sure all of us on the board will take what you've told us tonight and try and come up with the best decision that's going to be suitable for everyone. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Morelos to go ahead and provide us with any information he'd like to share with us regarding this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the time. After everything is said and done, all the input and information given by the administrators and the union, I think we're all, I've been looking at my notes of what I have, and they've hit most of my points of what I have here too. So I'm not going to go ahead and say them all over again. I truly believe we're on the same wavelength for most of the things that they have said. But one thing I will bring up, I'm going to make it short and sweet, Ms. Cole. The safety of staff and students is number one in my book, and that comes with vaccinations. And then, do we have vaccinations for all the teachers? I don't think so, and the staff. The factors that we've been brought up is, like I said, the vaccination. Are buildings ready? I don't think they're ready myself either. Is there enough disinfectants for everybody, for the teachers to feel safe, especially with vaccines? I'll go back to the vaccine. We've been talking a lot about sports have been brought up a lot, but I'm worried about our students just getting academics back into their lives. And if anybody wants them back in school, it's me. But again, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I make the right decision, that we don't lose. And I hate to use the word lose or even the word die, a student or a staff that really gets sick. I want to have a clear conscience that we made the right decision on that. I've had the virus myself, just like Mr. Amador, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy, guys. We just have to be safe. That's the bottom line. And I truly believe that if we wait till August for the new school year, we have plenty of time between now and then to prepare our staff with their issues that they need to be ready with, to prepare our buildings, and mainly to have everything safe for everybody come in feeling safe that we're going to be okay. Like I said, I think we need to stay remote. Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Morelos. Mrs. Esquivel, would you like to go ahead and speak?
Okay. Well, first of all, the main reasons I decided to become a school board member was to do what is the best interest of our students and our staff. Every school board member in the state has been pushed back in a corner to make this difficult decision for our students and staff. I agree with a lot of you. Thinking our children should be back in school, but unfortunately, these are hard times, and it's not normal at all. I understand the importance for our athletes to resume in sports and the importance of social interaction. But again, these are not normal times. Our duty as a school board member is to protect our students as well as our staff. If we allowed our children to go back to school too soon, we are putting them, the staff, and all our families at risk. Regardless of what side of the fence you are on about the dangers of COVID, we have to understand this is real. Until we are able to come up with a safe solution for our safe to go back to school and for a safe environment for our students and staff, I think we should remain remote learning. With that being said, I think we should come and revisit this and see, based on what the union has to say, we could hopefully revisit that in-person learning for some of our seniors and juniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Esquivel. Mr. Barrera, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Thank you for everyone, the students, teachers, principals, Dr. Lucas, school nurse, Miss Chase. Everyone's really, been helpful throughout this whole process. I'm like Mr. Morelos, honestly. Dr. A, Mr. A, Mr. Robeson, everyone kind of echoed what I was going to say. I'm worried about, I'm worried about, of course, the safety of our staff, our students, everyone involved. Vaccines, I think that's the number one priority. We got to make sure that teachers have the opportunity to get vaccinated. I think, I don't know, I've been saying since probably December that it's growing increasingly likely that we're not going to go back as the months go by. And then all of a sudden this gets kind of dropped on us. And so now we have like a clash between sports and basically the happiness of student athletes versus the health of our teachers and students. And it's honestly, I think if you just take out the sport aspect of it, it's an easy decision just to stay at school. I mean, at remote learning. I don't think we'd have any argument whatsoever with this. Mr. Hooper did kind of bring up a good point. Not kind of, he brought up a very valid point, and I hadn't thought of it yet, which is like I like hearing all of our decision makers speak on it. He talked about it being motivation for the kids to actually go and do good in school. I think it's definitely a good point. I just think, where the seniors are at in their lives, where we're at in the school year, I think it's time to start kind of placing value on life beyond school. Too many times we kind of put a value on what we do here in this town in athletics, and honestly, that's not much value after high school. I'm not saying sports aren't important. I know they're important. I played 4 years. I'd be devastated if I had a board member telling me this right now. But I think in 5 years or whatever, I've been 8 years removed from high school. I think I really understand that sports had little to do where I'm at with life right now. And I think in a few years, they'll benefit from this decision if we do make this decision tonight. So that's where I'm at with it. Again, I think we should probably remain remote. I see Alyssa's point of kind of sitting back. I think the other thing that Mr. A talked about was the timeline. So maybe if we could start the fire marshal process already, because let's face it, we're Lordsburg, New Mexico. I know we're kind of expecting 2 weeks. It might be a month though. So kind of just, I guess we could start that just in case. try to maybe start the teachers union contract just in case. And then maybe again from there decide. At that point though, we're looking at probably March, if anything. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point, I don't know how much of a season would be left, or we are a school, how much value that would have in the actual learning environment. I think it's difficult to implement such a new strategy right now when we're just kind of getting over the trials and errors of this strategy. It's going to, just add on to this whole new process. So I think there's a lot to still kind of take in, but that's where I am at. If you guys do want to wait a little bit, I'm okay with that too. But for right now, from my standpoint, I think remote would probably be best. Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Barrera. Mr. Gomez, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Ms. Cole. I want to start off by thanking everybody who's joining us. I'm getting word that we have over 150 people watching us, so I do appreciate that. I want to talk about that actually. I think that should be one of our new norms to start off, this year, and have this many participation on all of our school boards, not just when it comes to athletics, and by parents, students, community as a whole. I also, Ms. Cole, want to thank the students. Over the past week or so, I've received a lot of emails, and I appreciate their opinions and their beliefs. I believe that a young voice is a strong voice in a community, and I encourage all students to continue safely expressing and voicing their opinions. I do apologize for the ones that I have not responded to yet. I think our emails have been pretty busy lately. As far as our staff, parents, community members, I do want to thank them for participating in this survey. The data that is presented to us, it's extremely important to our Board of Education and our school administration to make decisions. As a parent of students at the Lordsburg Municipal Schools, I could empathize with many of your guys' concerns and the new norms that we're forced to live with due to COVID-19. This is a virus that none of us wanted, nor we wish for it to still be around. Unfortunately, it is, and it continues to be very real. Just this morning, I had a discussion about my own son's grades and attendance issues that he's having in school. It's clearly not what I want for my kids. As a school board member, though, my personal interest should never be a factor when making district-wide decisions. Personal is personal and business is business, and we should always treat them as such. Going back to what Alyssa said, when I ran for this position, I understood the possibilities of the good and the bad times that our district could face, and us having to make difficult and unpopular decisions when it came to the education of our students. Unlike I want our community to really understand that unlike other government boards, we do this as a public service to our community. It's all volunteer. So I want to guarantee everybody that you have a loyal Board of Education that is truly invested in your community, and we mean well. I believe that I could speak for the rest of the board when I say that even though there's times that we agree to disagree, we always find a way to work together and make decisions that need to be done while having the best interest of our students, employees, and community as a whole in mind. Over the past week, there has been a lot of valid discussion regarding prioritizing education over sports, learning, and trying to live with COVID, and how other districts are operating in our state. After listening to everyone's opinions and ideas, we have to recognize that no one is wrong. All comments, all points of view are valid, as it impacts us all in a different and personal way. Realistically, we do have to realize that this virus isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I think that for a lot of people, taking those initial steps is vaccination. In my opinion, I believe that our governor and Department of Health have made careless decisions, to say at the very least, in wanting to proceed with the reentry of students to schools without taking into consideration that educators are now at the bottom of the list in our state to receive the vaccine. It is clear that this action has turned political and has been very disappointing to all of us. I think that the reality is that our district does not have qualified staff to spare. Our risk losing anyone to early retirement, temporary illness, or even worse, just period. I mean, we can't afford that. We work and live in rural communities with limited resources. We have been a unique district in a sense that we operate different from other districts, in part to that we have a selective labor force in our area, nor an abundance of money like other locations across our state may have. Mental health has been a concern in our community, a concern that people have refused to talk about or admit for years. But now our youth and parents are recognizing it and reaching out for help. We need to be there for them and be ready to respond and assist them to the best of our abilities. What I would ask from staff is that you please continue to be patient with our students, understanding, flexible. Our school counselors, it's very important that you guys check with them periodically. Ms. Cole, just to summarize this, the NMA's decision to only allow students to participate in sports whose districts are entirely in a hybrid model is unreasonable. As for many students, this seems to be the major part of the issue, them wanting to play. I strongly encourage to place your guys' efforts and contact the governor's office, the Secretary of Education, in hopes that we can change this rule. It just doesn't make sense to me. I am open to revisit the topic as soon as a possible revised decision has been made by the governor's office and the Secretary of Education once our staff has fully been vaccinated. And I mean, one thing that we just learned today is our teachers union, once an agreement has been accomplished with them, to make any final decisions prior, I believe it would be unreasonable and selfish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I'll take a few minutes to make a comment myself. I want to thank everyone. I know for me, this decision that we have to come up with tonight and the choice that I make is very difficult. It's not easy because I know it impacts everybody so differently and on all levels. I too want to, say thank you to all the people, all the parents, the public, the teachers, the students who reached out and gave us feedback, filled out the survey that was sent out by the school district. I don't know if it's understood that there's so many factors that go into what we have to look at, that we have to take in order to make these decisions. I wish it was just one thing that we have to look at, but when you look at these factors, they get broken down into subsections, and these subsections may get broken down to others. So there's a lot of little factors that are taken in that we have to look at. there's nothing more than that I would love is than to see our children back in school, our athletes back on the court, on the field. But we've really got to look and get these academics in. Right now, this is where we're focused. This is what we need to look at. And when I came onto the school board, that's what I wanted. I wanted to make sure that academics didn't get lost and that our kids would thrive and that they could go on and have an education to lean on. With this being said, I don't see it feasible to go back in a hybrid model at this point. You're going to take the kids out of their structure and their routine that they're currently in, and you're going to place them back in the school if we go hybrid. And they're going to have to relearn, get a new set of instructions on. They're going to have to learn this is 6 feet apart, this is what you can touch, this is what you can't touch. Just new rules that they'll have to get readjusted to. So if you figure that's going to take time away from instruction, and if we're really looking at keeping our academics, that instruction is important. Yes, the remote that we have right now is not ideal or how we want it, but our children are getting instruction. And I think our teachers are doing an excellent job and our administrators are doing an excellent job. And they're trying very hard and they're giving their best at making sure our students are getting an education. With the change, if we did go back in a hybrid model, again, it wouldn't be conducive because we're going to have to take the time in order to renegotiate the TEL agreement, which is going to take 5 weeks. And we can't bring the teachers and the kids back in until that agreement is negotiated and agreed upon. So therefore, that pushes us further into the school year with less time in the classroom, as well as the spring break, Easter break, President Days that are coming up. That's another week out of being in school. And then the kids are going to come back from that break. Again, you're going to have to regain their focus and get them back on track. Like I said, there's nothing more than I would love than to have our kids back in school. But I think this late in the game, it just doesn't make sense to go back right now. Let's get together and make sure that we have the school ready come August so that our kids can go back, have a fresh start, a full school year. And, you know, if we need to, let's go back in remote with getting in the kids who are needing interventions, the high risk kids, and start working with them. If you know, if that's something we can look at. And it's not going to be all our kids, but it'll still be remote, and it'll be those that are needing that extra assistance to get them going on their academics. So please, you know, I know whatever decision we come up with tonight may not be conducive to your idea or what you wanted to hear, but please understand that we have a hard decision to make and that we're trying to make a decision that's best for everyone that's involved, our students, our staff, our administrators, our parents, our grandparents, our entire community, because it doesn't affect just one, it affects us all. And it was very unfortunate that the governor so late decided that she was going to basically wash her hands of this and leave it to the state of New Mexico school boards to make this decision for her, and that they put the limit on the athletes in their agreement that the schools had to be in hybrid mode in order to play sports, where she could have left it that with a different agreement. And then to take the teachers and take them out of the 1B area and push them down to the bottom of the list, knowing that these positions are important and that our teachers matter. She made them seem as if they weren't important to our state or to our children's education. So I hope you all understand, and I appreciate you all for being on here. I appreciate our administrators and Ms. Montiel again and Mr. Hooper for getting on and helping us by sharing their sentiments on this situation. Anything else from anyone?
Ms. Cole, I just have one more thing. I just want to make sure that people that understand, and if I'm understanding correctly from the rest of the board members, that we are open to the possibility of sports if it gets changed by the governor, correct? So if by whatever reason we're able to change her mind, and the Secretary of Education, that we would revisit the topic for the possibility that our students could play, correct?
Yeah, yes. Can I talk a second on that?
Yes.
On that topic? I'm gonna go ahead and keep pursuing with Mr. Lucas's help and Mr. Robertson. I'm gonna pursue trying to get some kind of waiver or something done to see if we can play sports. Or we're not gonna quit on that. And then obviously we'll get your guys' approval on that if we can get that to happen.
Sir,
Are you guys okay with that?
And if there's anything that we could do on our side, let us know. I think we're all willing to help out. Just so you guys know, I did reach out to the Lieutenant Governor last night. Some of the teachers actually today sent out letters to the governor. So anything that we could do to help, we don't want anybody to be discouraged. We just want to make, I guess what I'm trying to say, just being realistic of what could happen if they don't change. But I think that we're open to the idea to get sports if that's a possibility. And Dr. Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, but we should still have our students continue playing, practicing, and everything, correct?
Right, by all means, they should be able to practice. In fact, if we can get the governor to change, I mean, this athletics, if y'all are okay, I mean, that's not something we necessarily would need to come back for if y'all are okay with it. Now we wouldn't have to have a meeting, a board meeting to get approval. You can just maybe put that in whatever motion you do tonight that should the governor change their stance and allow our kids to participate with whatever model we're in, then that's fine.
Thank you.
And I'm hopeful. I think that this is something that's going on across the state. And I think if we do things the right way and we put enough pressure to leave it back to the district, I think it could change, and I hope it changes. It just doesn't make sense for it not to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I'd like to add just one more thing, and this is to the students that are listening. I encourage you to keep up with your academics. Your education is something that is yours forever, and nobody can take from you. Take pride in your education and grasp it for everything that it's worth. Whether, I know some of you bank on sports and that's what you work toward with your grades, but work toward that grade even if sports wasn't in there. Like I said, your education is your best prized possession, and it's something that no one can take from you.
Ms. Cole, I believe last meeting we had spoken about other possible incentives. Can Coach Hooper and Dr. Lucas work on other types of incentives in the meantime?
I think we can address that as a topic for our next meeting.
Okay.
That's okay. Okay. Is there anyone that would like to propose a motion to the board?
I had another question. I'm sorry, Susie.
Okay, go ahead.
With everything that the union, everything that's going on with the union, what are the steps that we need to take as board members to reach an agreement to have all grades, not even sports, but every single student from pre-K to 12th grade that don't play sports, what can we do for them? What can we, with the union, what kind of agreement can we agree with to have everybody educated properly? I know that, sports is a big thing, and it's a big thing for me because I played since 8th grade. But, in all reality, all of our other kids are suffering from it. And I get it.
So I believe the TAL agreement is an agreement as to the daily work schedule and tasks that are asked of them. It doesn't have to do with
nothing else. Okay, because
Right.
we don't want to break.
Am I correct, Dr.
agreement.
Lucas?
Right. I mean, the TAL agreement is for all grade levels. And so, and when we're talking about hybrid, we're not just talking about high school, we're talking about all grade levels, because the state's definition of hybrid is every student that wants to come to school can come to school at least 50% of the time. So that's all. I mean, like, we couldn't, because I'd even toyed with the idea of, let's just go hybrid at high school and see how that works and phase it in. And we can, but that doesn't fix anything with athletics. I mean, because their definition is it has to be pre-K through 12. And the union negotiations, I mean, that's just something that we do, but anything we do, it will affect all grade levels, not just athletics or anything like that. In fact, the union really has nothing to do with athletics. It's strictly the academic side.
Yeah, I see that with the academic side about it. But I don't know if I'm understanding it, but with our teachers, this union, I don't know how many teachers are a part of this union. And most of our staff, complain that, not complain, but they actually told us like what their concerns were, that they're not vaccinated. People were afraid the first go around whenever it was offered to us, that they wanted to check it out first. They were kind of iffy about it, but now they want to. So is there any way that we could write a letter, from the board, sending this to the governor, sending this to the health department head, that our teachers are crying for help? We all want to go back to in-person learning, but with all that resource, we're pushed back. And I don't know how you guys all feel about this, board members, but I think we should write a letter concerning our teachers' concerns, and hopefully they can go up to the list again, not to the bottom of the list.
And so right now the teachers are so they were considered 1B, and 1B was like one broad category. And so they were having teacher vaccination events. And then the Department of Health canceled those, and they moved teachers not to the bottom of the list, but to the bottom of group 1B. So after I think it's 65 and over, or those with other health conditions get the vaccine, then it'll move to teachers. So they're not at the bottom of the list, but they are the bottom of 1B category. And by all means, if you want to write a letter to the governor, I mean, we can even get with Mr. Guillen with the New Mexico School Board Association and probably get his help. But yeah, we can write a letter. You can write a letter as a board and send it, and I would encourage it. Any letter out will help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas.
I'll entertain any motion at this time if a board member would like to.
Ms. Cole, I'm sorry, I had something that
sorry.
came up now. I'm sorry. On the TAL agreement, how does it work? Does the previous TAL agreement stay in place now, since we don't have anything?
Yes, because we agreed, we did the agreement at the beginning of the school year. So if we make any changes that affect that agreement, then we need to renegotiate what that is. So like right now, some of the issues would be doing, because they're required by law, we go hybrid. So a student can stay remote and a student can come to class. So if they choose to stay remote, the teacher's going to have to be teaching class and teaching remote. So that's almost an extra class they have to prepare for and teach. And so they only are required to teach, say, 7 periods a day, plus they get a 30-minute duty-free lunch And so if you're eating in the classroom, that's a period. So, you know, it would have to increase pay. I mean, there's a lot of things that it would affect.
And as far as the negotiation, that could be, I mean, if they don't get vaccinated, that could be drawn out until the summertime.
Right, because that could be one of the things, and I empathize with them. I mean, just with my health conditions, I don't think I would want to be in the classroom without being vaccinated.
I understand.
If I may speak and just give a little bit more understanding about the negotiation and the bargaining. What any union does is that employees, it doesn't matter where you work at, employees have rights. What happens with the union when you're unionized, then you bargain those working conditions, whereas at a place that isn't union, they just say, okay, this is what you're required to do. This is what you do. This is whatever. You don't have no say in it. With unions, and you know, it's the majority of schools do have unions representing them because it is a part of the state law. And with unions, what you do is you bargain those working conditions. Anything that is a working condition, whether it's the amount of time, the length of the school day, the breaks, anything, you can wages, making sure, I mean, one thing with like COVID, making sure that that teachers do have access to all those cleaning supplies and that when they need it, not, oh, well, you know, we didn't get this amount here, so we can't give you anything right now. And teachers having to go out and buy supplies, anything that is a working condition. And I'm saying teachers because teachers are in the classroom right now, but really almost anybody can join the union. And, you know, that's custodial staff, that's secretarial staff. The only ones that aren't allowed to be part of that agreement are administration and administrative secretaries that have access to like everything that goes on in the district. So in other words, our admin secretaries at the Dr. Lucas, the ones that work there, chances are some of them, the majority of them would not be able to become part of the union. However, like our secretaries at the schools, they could become part of the union, but it's just to have some input into what those working conditions are. And you know, one of the things is you know, I heard the principals and they have the plans in place, but those plans have never been discussed with the union, and they don't and they haven't been bargained. So we don't know what we're expected to do. I don't know what I'm expected to do if I'm to go into there, and that's a working condition. And so all of that has to be bargained. What usually happens within the process is we meet with town members and general member, or the non-members with all employees, and get their input as to what are issues that we need to bargain. So in this case, we would go and what are you concerned about? What is it that we can negotiate? So we have to get that input. We have to then agree to meet with the admin, with Dr. Lucas, set a time for meeting, have an agenda for it. Usually the first meeting is just to go over basically the rules of what's going to happen within that negotiation period. Then the other meetings are to actually sit down and negotiate and bargain and say, okay, well, this is what our members are asking. And then Dr. Lucas would say, well, you know, this sounds like, yes, we can reasonably do that. Well, we may not be able to do this. And then so we counter back, and it's just a whole bargaining process. And it does take time and I expect, because there are so many adjustments to this, that it's going to take a while. It's not going to be a quick process. When we are all finished with negotiations, then we go back to all the employees and tell them this is what came out of the negotiations. If you have questions, let us know. We'll try to answer them. And then it's voted on by only union members. And if the union members agree to it, then Dr. Lucas goes ahead and takes it to the board, and you guys agree to it or don't agree to it. If either party, because there's only two parties, if either party, whether it's the union members or the school board, don't agree to it, we have to start that bargaining process all over again, and until we can reach an agreement. And until an agreement is reached, that old agreement stays in place. So it is a process, and it does require time. So I hope I've answered your questions, and thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Ms. Montiel, real quick, is this something that all districts in the state will be facing, not just Lordsburg, correct?
Correct. All districts that have a union, and the majority of them do. There's very few that don't, because it is a state law that you have the right to organize. And as a matter of fact, they did make it where you have to have a union within the schools. So yes, all districts are required to do this. We do have, just from our state NEA, we do have a letter to open bargaining should we need to open bargaining. That's already been drafted for us to use, because all of this it's all legal stuff, and we have to put it in writing and all of this stuff. So there is a process, and it's all a legal process.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion if.
Ms. Cole, this is
Yes, sir.
Edgar. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we remain in remote learning with a small group of 5 kids for our SPED students and possibly the struggling students.
A motion has been made. Is there a second on this motion?
This is Morelos, I'll second, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Morelos. I'll take roll call. Mr. Barrera?
Aye. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Mr.
Doing my
Barrera?
thumb. Aye.
Okay, Mr. Morelos?
Aye.
Mrs. Esquivel?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Myself? Aye. With all business of the board taken care of, this meeting is adjourned at 7:29 p.m.